10 minutes, and Kellyanne's going to be my guide for that, with questions at the end. So I looked up the definition for choices, which seems like it would be easy for everyone, but just to remind you, choices is an act of selecting or making a decision when faced with two or more possibilities. The choice between good and evil. And I love that because we live in a world today where choices basically run our lives. Every morning that we wake up, we make a choice. We make a choice to get out of bed. We make a choice what we're going to eat for breakfast, so on and so on and so on. I read a saying by C.S. Lewis, who, it wasn't a saying, basically he gave advice of starting your day off with right choices, and the thing was to make up your bed. Every morning you get up, make up your bed. You have done something, you've completed it, and you can start off with having completed something. I've been doing that for almost 20 years. So I grew up in Yonkers, New York. In the projects, we were pretty poor growing up, but as a child, I didn't know it. Kids play, and it doesn't matter if you're poor or rich or whatever, we have a good time and we play. So I didn't really know how poor I was until I started getting into high school, and I couldn't afford the things that, you know, everybody else had. But I was always content with what I had, and I did have a mom and a dad, which is kind of irregular today. More so today than it was back then, but even more, fathers are checking out from being fathers. So I grew up with a mom and a dad. My dad was Army in the military, and my mom had an 8th grade education, but she got her GED and she became a nurse. So I come from a strong background, and my dad used to say, learn from everything that you're told all day long. The good things, keep; the bad things, throw away, but learn from everything. And my mom used to say, just because you're poor, you don't have to be dirty. And I just remember that forever, that it doesn't matter what stage in life you grow up in, you always have a choice to do good or evil, right or wrong. And that is something that I tried to live my life by, and it has served me well. I retired, I graduated high school in 11th grade, and I went right off to college to California, from New York, California, and I attended the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandise, which was just a beautiful school, and it taught me a lot. But I didn't really like the lifestyle in California, and I didn't have a car, so that makes a big difference. So anyway, I went back home. I started working with Down syndrome children, and I loved it. I just loved it, and I wanted to be a physical therapist for Down syndrome children, but I didn't have the money for that type of schooling. So my brother was in the Army as well, and my uncle, my dad's oldest brother, was in the Army, and they said, you know, you just need to join the military, get your college degree, and you're off in life. So I went down to the famous recruiting center in Times Square in New York. I was about 80 pounds soaking wet, and the guy looks at me, he goes, sis, you don't want to be in the Army. And he walked me down to the Air Force, true story. So I went in the Air Force. I worked with pilots my whole career. I served in Tucson, Arizona. Then from there, I went to the Netherlands for 10 years and raised my children in Holland. And then I came here to beautiful Las Vegas at first, and then Boulder City. I've been in Boulder City for 17 years. Retired from the Air Force in '98, went to work for Nevada Test Site, and retired from the test site in 2013. In the interim, back in the Netherlands, I got saved, and I became a born-again Christian, and my life really kicked up a notch as far as making the right choices, because then I had to serve the Lord. And that's even more than serving you guys, because when you serve the Lord, everything else falls in the right place. Actually, there's a scripture that says, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all things will be added unto you. And I have not wanted for anything in my life as an adult. I kid you not, because God has taken care of me. Doesn't mean that I'm rich, but I'm rich in spirit, and I'm rich in friends, I'm rich in family, and I have a little granddaughter. Yeah. So anyway, when I retired from the Nevada Test Site, I retired after 13 years because I was at the age level, and I was at the time of working for the test site, so I retired the second time, and I decided to start a ministry for young women to how to make choices, and it's called Pride and Purity. On your table, each one of you have, I'm going to walk you through our little class that we have. There's a form. You don't have to give it back to me. You can fill it out, or you don't have to fill it out, or you can pass it on. But the first thing I do with the youth is ask them a question. what do you want to accomplish in the next 2 years? So it gives them an idea to think, okay, this is the way I want to go. How am I going to get there? So they got to literally write down what they want to do, right there on the spot. Don't think about anything, just write. And the same thing for adults. When I have the adult class, they fill out that form. What do you want to do in the next 2 years? For some of the kids, it's I want to make the cheerleading team. I want to get my driver's license. I want to start my business. I want to get married. There's all these things that people want to do in choices. Then the second one brings it a little bit more home. What do you think will keep you from accomplishing that? Choices. For girls, it could be a guy. They're on their way to college, and then Johnny comes in their life, and they're off their game. All they can think about is Johnny. And this is life. This really, really happens. Mostly high schoolers, you know, that guy touches your hand, and it's like, oh, I can't wash my hand, or I can't, you know, he said your eyes are pretty, and you're in the mirror for 2 hours the next day because somebody told you your eyes or your hair was pretty. These are choices that you have to make to stay on that path to do what you want to do. So in the Pride and Purity class, we started here in Boulder City in my house, and we meet for 6 hours. We break that 6 hours up. I started with twins in Boulder City, and we started 1 hour every week, so we met for 6 weeks. And it gave the girls time to bond and make friends, because your friends is who you are. People you hang out with will be either good or they will be a bad influence. So we used to do that. And then when my first girls, they were, I would say 11 and 12, somewhere around there, but when they got to high school, their life started to fill up with different activities, sports, and all these things. So we broke it down to 2 hours for 3 weeks. And then we went to Friday nights. We had 2 hours, and we finished at 4 hours on the next Saturday. So we could break that 6 hours up anyway. And basically, they are in this book right here called Riblets. And riblets is just a play off of words. God took a woman out of the ribs of man, so little riblets, a little girl. So that's how we got the title of the book. But we go through these 12 chapters, and basically we just read, and then we ask questions, and we just talk about life. That's all we do. So after the class is over, they get a purity ring to remind them, it's just a ring, like any other ring, it's just a symbol to remind them who they belong to, what their goals are. It just reminds them, what did I learn in that class? They have their full graduation, they get a graduation certificate, they get a gift bag. The class is $40. I don't get paid for anything. It just goes for the class itself, the book, the snacks, and the gifts, the certificates. So we do that. Then after the class is over and they graduate, they have to serve their community. And that's one of the things we've learned in here, just right up till today. The choice of serving your community is the best thing you could do, because you will be in that situation to where you have to be served by your community. So it's just kind of like choices. In school, they used to say abstinence. It meant just say no. In the purity class, we say don't get into a situation to where you have to say no. Am I 2 minutes already? Oh my gosh. Okay, and I'm talking fast. So they serve their community, and then we serve outside of our community. We do Operation Christmas Child, who now we partnership with Faith, and we have with Pastor Adams and Calvary Chapel, where we send presents to kids all over the world. We do Wreath Across America, that's my military hat. We lay wreaths on the graves every December, and you guys know this, the ones have been here for a while, to honor our soldiers that have served our country. And then we work for Women's Medical Resource Center's Race for Life. We participate there. Let's see. The biggest thing though, the girls have to know how other girls live. So in the spring break, we go somewhere in the United States so they can see how other girls live. We give the same purity class, and they're giving the purity class with the girls. And then in the summer, we go somewhere overseas. So they can't ask the parents for any money. They have to raise it by bake sales or whatever. And I've asked you guys, especially when we feed the homeless, just for different gifts. So they are learning to be entrepreneurs and learning how to make the right choices. I want to get to point B, but I got to get to point A, and that means work for it. So we're teaching our children, our girls especially, how to work. This year is going to be a little different because of COVID. We have the opportunity of going to the Ronald Reagan Ranch with the what's it called? Young Americans Foundations. It's like Turning Point. They're one of the biggest sponsors. It's a $1,200 per child opportunity to go for 4 days to the Ronald Reagan Ranch in California. There's a donor in California that is paying for all the kids that go. Doesn't matter how many. They just have to come with $100. So we're going to do bake sales and all that for the kids to raise $100. So, in a nutshell, that is Pride and Purity. It's about making right choices and teaching young men and women how to make right choices. Thank you, Kellyanne. I'm totally ran out. That was the fastest 10 minutes. So I leave you with this, I guess you could say, something that you may want to do, you may not want to do. We have a young lady, she's 22 years old, I'm hoping to get her here. She has worked since she's been out of high school, and she fell on bad times. She's a good girl though. She had a roommate with 3 roommates. The roommates all left, they sold the house or whatever, so we had to find her an apartment. We finally got her an apartment, so thanks Chelsea and Mary who was looking around. She did get an apartment, but she doesn't have transportation. She lives here in Boulder City. I talked to Amy. Amy has a little scooter, and we went online, and they're only $300. So I'm just asking everybody to pitch in 10 or 20 bucks, $5, $2, whatever, and we want to give this young lady and get her started in her life. She works 2 jobs now, so she's not just, giving up and saying, yeah, she's making the right choices to keep one step. But sometimes you need a little bit of help, and we all needed that at some point in time. So you all know my tagline, where much is given, much is required, and to guard your heart, for out of it flows the issues of life. Does anybody have any questions? Kind of a heavy topic for this morning. No questions?
Yeah, wonderful.
Well, thank you very much, and God bless you all.
All right, thank you, Denise. Good presentation.